Hello. Hello, everybody. Okay, let's see. I'm trying really hard to use natural light and not my ring light or the overhead light in my sewing room because honestly, they're both kind of awful. I mean, the ring light has a weird glare no matter how many times I adjust it. The overhead light is the worst, right? I'm sorry, I'm trying to like figure out how to position this so that you guys aren't getting so much glare on my glasses, but that seems to be impossible. So we're just going to leave it at this. You can kind of see some of my sewing room. See that? That's a giant Simplicity cabinet that I went all the way to Pennsylvania to get. That, by the way, I don't think I ever told you guys the story. When we got there, it was obviously not 1,000 patterns. It was like 3,000, and they were all in the drawers of these two. There's two of them. There's another one over here. My sister had trash bags in the car, like the black kind that you use for leaves. She just had them in her car for, whatever, right? We started to take all the patterns out and throw them into these black trash bags, which is when I knew it was more than 1,000 patterns. Then, even without patterns in them, this guy had to take it's a little tractor and it has like a dump bucket like the giant backhoes have, except it's like longer and it's used for like your garden. It's for digging in your garden. He had to put these in that and then put them onto my sister's truck. But then when we got back here, we had to unload them. That was fun. So, yeah. But here they are. They're in here. Both of them are very rusty on the bottom. If I ever get a chance to replace them, I probably will, and I'll use these for something else and not use the bottom two drawers. But at this point, the Simplicity drawer is already getting full straight across. So yeah, I got a lot of patterns. So this week, as I told you guys last week, I was going to be working on 80s patterns. So over here, I have a plethora of ladies of the 80s patterns. But before we get started, I'm going to show you some of the stuff that I found this week digging through the pile. So I'm going to start with these. Found lots and lots of vintage bridal patterns. And I'm actually putting these aside for now because I am going to do bridal completely separately. Sorry, I'm going to pull that forward because I think that is a little less glare. And some of these were 80s, some of these were not. They were kind of all mixed in. Again, I think this is worse. All right, hold on. Sorry. So we'll test it out on bridal patterns. And then this one I pulled out because, I mean, seriously, you're only going to wear this to the prom, or if you're a bridesmaid, you're not going to be wearing this to, make a Trader Joe's run. Whatever. All right. So that's not working either. Let's do it all the way over here. See if this is better. I guess. I mean, I can't. No, none of these are good. All right. So I don't want a shot of my boobs. Let's try and. I was going to use my phone. But the problem with my phone is my phone's even worse at focusing. And I like to have this space here where I can really show you guys the patterns. So let me show you some other stuff that I found. So I found this pattern. No envelope, no nothing. But as you can see, it's a pre-cut pattern. And it's a size 22.5. Hi, my dog's here who ignored me all day. But now that I'm talking, he needs to come see what's going on. To 24.5. I did find a picture of it, which I couldn't download. It is Simplicity 5928. I was unable to download this picture of this, but it's basically like a 70s kind of pretty standard A-line coat with a collar. Nothing really to write home about. Found this pattern, as you can see. No pants. There's the line drawings on the back. So it's everything except the pants. But it's pretty cool. It's a safari jacket and like a tunic and some other stuff. So That'll go into the wounded birds. Here's another wounded bird. This one was cool. This is made for knits, but has absolutely no directions. So you need to kind of know what you're doing with this one, especially because it's knits. And then, okay, last but not least, we're going to talk about this one. This one, there's so much going on with this one. I got to pull it out of the box. So this one, when I was going through the patterns, I found this bag. You can see Mr. Mouse has been active on this bag. Mr. Mouse has been dead for many years, by the way, because this bag is old. Found this receipt. It's very hard to read, but I think it's called the New York Company. It was for 75 cents. You know, thank you, 75 cents. Can you see that date? That's right, February 1964. So what I'm about to show you is actually older than I am. So it is this pattern, which I had to put a little tape on because she is in bad shape because of Mr. Mouse. And you may ask how I know it's a mouse and not bugs. Because of that. Can you see all that? Yeah, the difference between mice and bugs eating things is very like delicate. These giant gaping holes, that's where a mouse took a chunk out of this lovely pattern to build a nest out of it. And it's kind of a cool dress. So when I got into the pattern, I found something even more interesting than just the pattern, which was this little bag. Remember these were the dime candy bags for penny candy. And in it was 3 of these. 3 just large kind of buttons for these are really coat buttons. I would call them coat buttons. Now, if you look closely, let me show you the pattern again. See this lovely little kind of bolero jacket? Okay. That is over here, factory folded, completely uncut. So this may end up going up as a wounded bird only because if you really just like that jacket, would you stop licking yourself, please? Hello, stop. If you just like this jacket, the jacket's actually never been cut or used. Granted, the instructions kind of trashed. I'd still include them because you might need to look at them. But the rest of the pattern had been cut. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So I'm not going to show you all of this, but she had done alterations using 2 methods that drive me crazy. The method where you actually sew through the dart, which this is actually still usable as long as your darts work. But then she had altered the pattern. She had lengthened it by adding newspaper. And the newspaper, by the way, is, let me fold it up for you so you can see it. In case you were interested, it is the Philadelphia Inquirer. And the date is, I found the date. It might not be on this piece. Oh, yeah, here it is. July 3rd, 1964. So again, this pattern is older than I am because I was born in 1964, but not until October. In fact, and there's one more piece I want to show you only because it's so fabulous. It's an advertisement. If I can find it, here it is. It's an advertisement for houses in Broomall, PA. Can you guys see this? There it is. It's the Something Estates, and you can buy a colonial home for $24,000. $24,500. And I was just thinking like, wow. So the year I was born, my parents could have bought a house in Broomall for only $24,000. How fascinating. So, you know, I love finding this stuff because to me it's really super interesting. Like I just think it's all interesting. But yeah, so here are my, oh, hello. $24,000, you can buy a house. I don't know where you live, but DeCarlo has joined us. And what did you put? Not newspaper. What do you mean? I don't know what you mean. But anyway, that was the Philadelphia Inquirer. And he's saying he can buy a house with $24,000. Now, I'm really curious what that house would look like and where it would be. All right. So without further ado, let's get into the ladies of the 80s. So I'll start with Simplicity and we'll move over to McCall's. Now, this very first one, I don't know if any of you remember her, Kathy Hardwick. I don't really remember her, but her name is so familiar. By the way, you'll see them later, but I did find like Liz Claiborne and some people that I remembered, right? This, I think, technically was from the 70s. There were a couple ESP patterns that I found that were actually like 79, but they looked like 80s patterns because they were 79. This one cracks me up. It's an ESP pattern. So here's the front, and then here's the back. So if you wanted to see what kind of shoes to wear with this pattern, there we go, right? And oh, these, I'm really sure I had these pants. Can you see that super kind of weird drop pocket thing going on there? I'm really sure I had these pants. I'm not sure where I got them, but I'm really sure I had them. Sorry, this glare is really, there we go, doing me in. And then just more of that cottagecore, ladies. I did put up lots of cottagecore this week. And in fact, I believe I showed you last week a Laura Ashley dress that was cottagecore. I already sold it. I mean, that quick I sold it. Yeah. See, that's the thing with cottagecore. That's why I basically try and get the cottagecore stuff up ASAP. Is it sells so well. There's such a community of women out there who are apparently dressing like, I don't know, dressing like fairy tale clothing, you know. Oh, I hate putting tape on patterns, but sometimes it's the only way I can really save the pattern is to put a little bit of Scotch tape on it. This lovely coat. Not very cottagecore, but very 80s. Oh, this next one. Oh, so something interesting that I found when I was going through patterns this week and working on patterns was I began to see a lot of patterns that specifically said they were made for sergers. And it reminded me that, yeah, back in the 80s was when you really started to see serger patterns. And I guess that's when sergers became popular for home use, because I don't really remember serging as a thing before that. I mean, you always like bound your seams, or you used a seam binding or seam finishing, but then suddenly serging became popular. And one of the things I noticed, I started to see a lot of patterns that were designed that said designed for stretch knit only within that, community of serger patterns. More cottagecore. Not as cottagecore as some other things, but not as cottagecore as this. Like, yeah. I actually, some of these I've already put up. In fact, this one is one that I've already put up. I actually put this up under maternity because to me it looks more maternity than, this is a duplicate. Sorry, guys. I showed you guys this one last week, but it's back. These are all up on my site, on my Etsy site, if you want to get a better look at them since we're having glare issues today. And if you're interested in buying any of these, the code is down below with the, this one doesn't have a line drawing. This one's a weird one. It comes up as a regular Simplicity pattern, but it's actually a quilt. This is all quilted vests here, both of these. There's only two styles, but they're both like quilted vests. And they give you all the measurements for the different fabrics and stuff back here, but they don't come up as a craft pattern, which is odd to me because remember I had that other Simplicity pattern that it said it was a craft pattern and I couldn't figure out why. It had the pockets and the drop waist, and I thought it had the transfers for putting cowls on your skirt and all that. I don't know. Asymmetrical stuff. Here we go. Marie, you changed your YouTube name to Space Hound. Okay. Whatever you want to be called, Marie. Welcome back. You missed a little bit, but you didn't miss a lot. We just got done the simplicity, ladies of the 80s. And now we're going to move into the McCalls. This is the one that I posted as the thumbnail, which I actually deleted and I didn't think about it. And then I couldn't repost it as the new thumbnail for this. YouTube has really weird stuff. All right, so here's a Liz, right? We were just talking about her. A Liz Claiborne. So she was one of the first designer patterns I found. Here's one that's made for sergers. And see, you can see on the bottom, see that serger. And I just remember when this was like a thing. And this unfortunately doesn't have line drawings, but does anybody else, I mean, I'm put it in the comments, but doesn't anybody else remember when all of a sudden sergers were really the rage? You know, like suddenly people were serging and they were doing a lot more knit materials. By the way, I'm really sure that I had this skirt right here. I really remember it, actually. I had it in plaid wool. It was cute. Doesn't sound cute, but it was. More cottagecore. This is another one that's actually 79, not 80, but it looks so 80. And then some more. You can never have enough cottagecore, right? The cottagecore girls are liking it. I think at some point in time, I'm going to have to resort to using the ring light again because, I don't know. Yeah, I got to say that it's true. Back in the 80s, we really loved the ruffle, man. DeCarlo's saying we loved the ruffle. We really did. Oh, I've never heard of a cover stitch machine. I've only heard of serger machines. Oh, look, this is kind of a designer. Remember Shari Belafonte Harper? She was an actress. Her father's Harry Belafonte, obviously. She was an actress. No idea what she's doing now. I do remember her being on things like Miami Vice and things like that back in the day. Another serger pattern. And this is another one. No. Oh, come here. When we get done these, I will show you all of what I consider true vintage. When I say true vintage, I mean stuff from the 70s and the 60s. I have my like grading system, which is like uber vintage, which would be 40s and 50s and anything before that. And then what I consider true vintage, which would be 60s, 70s, a little bit of the 80s, but this 90s and 2000s being vintage does not work for me. I'm absolutely not into that. Okay, so DeCarlo is saying that there was a lot of like movies like Pretty Baby and a lot of things where there was this like Edwardian kind of theme and fashion. And then Maria is saying that this thing that's called a cover stitch. See, I thought it was called an overstitch machine. No, I just thought it was called a serger. But that thing, it does like hems on t-shirts and things like that and ruffles and, stuff like that. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, and she's talking about the ruffles too, because she was saying she was born in 1980. You were born in 1983. You could be my daughter. I was 18 in 1983. And that her 12-year-old loves like the ruffly hems and all that. I know. That's who's buying my patterns. I swear. It's younger women. It's crazy. But I mean, it's crazy to me because I would think like, wouldn't you want to be wearing the stuff that's in style now? But then I forget that in the 80s, I was going to vintage stores and pulling the most amazing 40s and 50s true vintage dresses. And I was skinny then. I mean, I was like string bean back then, and I could fit in these beautiful 1940s and 1950s dresses. I used to wear them all the time. Even in my punk phase, I wore them with black tights and combat boots, and I would go to punk shows in these beautiful like gowns from the 50s, like party dresses that were made of lace and stuff. Like, because I dressed the way I wanted to. So here's the first in the Brooke series. I think it's funny that this one, they stopped using her image. They just did a drawing that kind of looks like her. The other ones, they still took pictures of her. Yeah, we are always looking. DeCarlo is saying we're always looking back. It's true, because now you have like on Netflix, I watched one episode and I didn't like it, of that 90s show, and I didn't like it. And I loved that 70s show. I just don't like this reboot at all. I really don't. I just don't like it. Not my, I just, part of it was like, I felt like I could see every joke coming. Like you would say something and then Red would say something, then Kitty would say, no. And it's not just that, I watched the original show and I remember Red and Kitty. It was to me, it felt very formulaic. That's a word. I don't know if that's a word. All right. So here's Brooke. So this is what's interesting. Here's Brooke, where her actual image is being used on the patterns. But then later on, like that other pattern I showed you, they just did a drawing that kind of looked like Brooke. This one's like kind of a hybrid, right? We got one picture of Brooke and then a bunch of girls that don't look like Brooke on the pattern. I really still don't remember Brooke Shields being on patterns. So here's a couple of more that I had to put into plastic because look at that. So this is another Liz Claiborne. Sorry about all of the glare. It's really nice. I mean, you know what? I'll just take it out so you guys can see the line drawings. Another Liz Claiborne. Really cute. And obviously it does not include that sweater. I just realized it's got a sweater on it. I'm like, yeah, it's not happening. Yeah, the thing that I liked about the 80s was the 80s did a lot of 40s and a lot of 50s. So that was another great thing was here I'm going out and I could buy these vintage things and they're super cheap. And some of them looked exactly like stuff that was on the hanger at the mall. But I was getting, I used to go to this one place. No, this doesn't have line drawings on the back. But okay, everybody remember somebody had this jumpsuit. I don't think I did, but somebody I know had that jumpsuit with the giant drop waist with the pockets. I don't know what we were storing in our pockets, nuts for the winter. I don't know what, but yeah, I liked the one of the things I liked about the 1980s growing up in the 1980s is I don't know how to describe it, but by the time we got to the 90s, I felt like we had all been gapified. Everybody was wearing twin sets and khakis and white shirts, and it's like everything got really homogenized. In the 80s, fashion, there was fashion, but there was also the underground, which was you could pretty much wear anything you wanted. I always think of Adam Ant. I remember seeing Adam Ant on TV, on like MTV, and he had like a military jacket, like like something that like a majorette would wear, but it was like the male version of the drum major I guess. And then he had like Indian face paint on and like a pirate shirt. And it was like, yeah. And then he had the 6 guns, remember? And it was like, yeah, dude, back in the 80s, you could dress like a drum major, pirate, Indian if you wanted to. You could do anything you wanted. It was the 80s. The rules they were all gone. They were all gone. We were all going to die because we knew there were lots of nuclear weapons and, hey, dress how you want, right? So this stack I haven't gotten to yet, but they're kind of 80s. They're like on that threshold, 89 into 90s. Yes. You were cookie. Yeah, in the 90s, I was a very cookie cutter too. Marie's saying she was very cookie cutter in the 90s. Like I was, like I said, in 1983, I was 18. So I kind of feel like my formative years were the 80s. So, I started high school in 1979, 1980. I was 14. By the time I graduated, went to college, all of that, blah, blah, blah. I got to be really wild kind of in the 80s and grow up in the 80s. But then when I got to the 90s, I had to get like real jobs. I worked for some major big corporations and I had to like dress normal and I couldn't dress like a pirate slash drum majorette slash Indian anymore when I wanted to, so I had to get very, I had to get very gappish myself, and I didn't like it. It wasn't fun. But it's interesting because I remember later, like kind of mid 90s, we got into that whole vamp thing where suddenly everybody wore black. It was the new uniform. And we even had the vamp lipstick by Chanel that was black. It wasn't really black. It was a really deep purple, but that was the fashion. And I just remember it was like a backlash or something. I don't know. We all got goth in the 90s. So these are some that I didn't get to yet. I got to iron them out. They've already been aired out. This is kind of cute. This is from the Glamour collection. These are glossy. Then the glossy ones really suck for the cameras. But look at how cute that suit is, right? Nice. I would have worn that suit. And like I said, these are like 89 going into 90s. So they're kind of crossing over. I think this one was 1990. I have to see if this one is actually uncut. It looks uncut, but I could be wrong. Oh no, it's not. This is cut. I can see a cut piece. At this point in time, if a pattern's cut, I'm kind of skipping over it because it takes me so much more time to make sure all the pieces are there. And I don't have the time. All right, now this one's uncut. Let me show this one to you. I have another one by this guy, Richard Warren. I've never heard of this guy either. I don't know. Raise your hand if you've heard of Richard Warren because I haven't. But this is late 80s. This is very Dynasty, isn't it? Yeah. So Dynasty. Very Nolan Miller. This one doesn't feel like there's a pattern in there. Oh, there is. Boy, is it slim though. Okay. Because it's just for a skirt, I guess. And that's why it's so slim. This one I think I looked at was 89. Oh, come on. There we go. Wow. Yeah, these glossy ones are much worse than just the regular ones. And then I had two of these, right? So here's the pattern. This is 90s. This has a very hip hop feel to me, which I think is funny, but it just does. It reminds me, it's very, I think it's this that's making me like a very hip hop kind of look. So I'm going to, like I said, most of these are already up online. These I didn't get to. I just ran out of steam, but they'll be up by tomorrow. The other ones, I did a lot of vintage simplicity today. And I mean real vintage, 60s and 70s. And they're not up online yet. The only ones I did put up were a couple that I found that were cut and counted. And they were really easy to put up because they were, whoever had cut them so well and put them back together in such a way that they were so perfect. It was so easy for me to count them. So I put those up. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I think DeCarlo might be talking about this one, or this Richard Warren one. But that's another thing. Some of the stuff I'm looking at in the 90s, the nifty 90s, reminds me of that Tom Hanks movie Big, where he's makes the wish to be an adult and he ends up working for the toy company, all that. And everybody, all the women have the giant shoulder pads because we were not just working, we were also linebackers on the side. I know I was. My very first suit that I wore to a job interview when I got a job in an investment firm, which was 1995, I got a job in an investment firm. I stopped waitressing, had seriously, I think the shoulder pads came out to here. It was a black double-breasted suit with yes, pleated pants. So to make my butt look as big as possible for my interview, right? Yeah, I was thin enough in the 70s and the 80s to dress in clothing that was wide. Now I can't do that anymore, but DeCarlo was saying we were able to like do that. We were able to be wide if we wanted to. So these Buttericks are up online if you want to get a better picture of them. These were some of the really nice vintage Buttericks that I pulled out. And they were so nice. This one's great. I mean, look at that. This is a great one. This is what's called a sloper pattern or a fitting pattern or a block pattern. Basically, you bought this pattern and you could then use it as kind of your mock-up. And then when you got another dress, you could actually lay this pattern over that dress and see if you needed to make adjustments on that dress. You could also take this basic pattern. You could take a collar from another pattern. You could take sleeves from another pattern, and you could throw them on and, use this pattern over and over again. They're great patterns to have. They do still make them. I know Butterick still makes one. I actually have it, and it's for a basic scoop neck A-line dress, and I bought it. It's from 2015. It's not even an old pattern. Okay, so Maria's telling me Richard Warren was a fashion designer for 24 years and retired in 1999. Never heard of him. Oh, he was famous for making dresses for working women and ladies who lunch. I've always wanted to be a ladies who lunch. So here's Richard Warren again. This does kind of look like a ladies who lunch dress, isn't it? I actually really like this one here. The flower's a bit too much for me. I don't even think, now the flower's not even included, so that was added later. But yeah, not really my thing. But, oh, and he was a fashion photographer. Huh, interesting. All right, so let's start with these are all vintage simplicity. So I'm going to start with the ones that I put up I put them up online and they are cut. But like I said, they were so easy to deal with. They were just not a lot of pieces, and you'll see. All right, so very cute, right? And again, see, not a lot of pieces. It's really easy for me to find all the pieces. I took pictures of them and put them online just because they're the only ones that I'm putting up that are cut. The other ones are all uncut, and there's a whole pile here. We'll get to them in a minute. I love this one. Look at how cool this dress is. Very mod dress. All right, so very first one. I know I say this all the time, but so many of these patterns remind me of the show Maude, right? So, right? You know what I'm talking about? The B. Arthur style. But it's great. It's a wardrobe pattern. It's got all those pieces in it. And here's another one. This one's even more Maude. Remember, she used to always wear these long vests. She was actually quite tall. I found out later in my life that she was like 5'11", 5'10". I'm 6 feet. So of course my mother, who loved her, was like, you're tall like Maude. This one, I almost thought that there was no pattern in it because of the way it felt, but it's a very thin pattern. It doesn't have a lot of pieces. How cool, right? Nifty, totally groovy. Because who doesn't want a zip front jumpsuit, right? Right. And then these Jiffies, these are great. Both of these, I think, were designed for stretch knits. Yeah. Now, see, these don't say serger on them. They just say designed for stretch knits only. So I guess that's before sergers got really popular. Actually, this one is not for stretch knits. I thought it was, but it's not. This is super cute. It is a two-piece dress and a dress. I love a two-piece dress. I feel like they're one of the fashion things that should really come back. B. Arthur. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I just do? That's true. DeCarlo is saying that B. Arthur didn't wear anything with waistlines, which is why she looked so tall. But she was tall. Um, I don't know how tall. Somebody look it up for me. Um, so how cute is this? I was blown away by how cute this is. This is another one that has hardly any pieces in it. This one and the next one were so freaking cute. Yes. Talk about ladies who lunch, right? Summer at the country club, playing tennis. There's your line drawings with your little tennis dress. So cute. I really like this one. It's a shame it's not my size. It's just a wrap skirt, but I love a wrap skirt. I don't know about the rest of you. I find them they're so comfy. Yeah, very Gilligan's Island, right? Yes, she's 5'10". Okay, somebody looked it up. She's 5'10". I found a couple of these that have slimming style, so I guess it's the placement of the lines of the dress. I guess. I mean, honestly, an A-line skirt's slimming anyway, so I'm not sure why that's particularly slimming. And I think it's funny. This is a size 14, which back in those days was a waist 28. If you're a size 14, but your waist is 28, you don't need slimming. Like these vintage sizes are nuts. It's funny. How cute, right? Very mod, another very mod pattern. Like I said, these will be up tomorrow, but all the rests are already up with the exception of that little bit of butterick that I just showed you guys. If you want a closer look at them. And obviously there's always a code if you want a discount. Oh, that's interesting. Maria's saying maybe on that slimming pattern, they put the skirt, the waistline of the skirt higher so that the skirt would flare out like further down or, flare out more a bit. That's possible. But still, I still think that, back in the day, if you had a size 28 waist, you probably didn't need slimming stuff. Okay, how fab's this? First of all, my favorite part of this is the hair. Look at this, and then look at this Star Trek thing going on over here, right? Captain Kirk. Imagine if she was green. Captain Kirk would totally make out with her. And there's the line drawings on that one. Okay. And then I think, yeah, this one's, yeah. Everybody, clear the room, hold the phone. Look at this. I'm going to make this and just wear it to Trader Joe's. I'm telling you, just wear it to go food shopping or something like that because it's so, look at how fabulous this one is. Woo! You were fabulous if you were wearing that outfit. This is pretty fabulous too. This is an interesting pattern, by the way. It's the dress, and then all of the collars are separate, and all of the cuffs are separate, and they're all removable. So you can make them, and you can snap them in and out. I thought this was a really ingenious pattern. Can you see how they're all listed separately over here on the line drawings? When I was working on it, I realized that they have them all lined up so that you can basically put them in and out. Very Wednesday Addams. Yeah, somebody just said Wednesday Addams. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then just a really basic, nice sheep dress. I think my mother had about 500 of these dresses back in the late 60s, early 70s, because this is the kind of thing she wore all the time. She was always wearing stuff like that. And this is so cute too. Look at that. I really like the pleats on this one. I think it's a really pretty, basic A-line midi dress. We're almost done. Another one, just a really basic, beautiful dress. This one had like no pattern pieces in it. It's a jiffy. It's got 3 pattern pieces because it's a jiffy. And then the pantsuit. So 70s. So that's it for this week. So all of the Simplicity vintage stuff, the buttericks are already up there that are vintage. All the Simplicity, the super vintage stuff, or the real vintage as I call it, will be up by tomorrow. I'm going to photograph it tomorrow morning. That's the only problem. I mean, I've had 4 days off. 3 days off. I have off tomorrow. they had a teachers in service Friday, and then tomorrow is President's Day. But the bad news is that then in March, I will have quite literally not one day off. And the kids start to get nuts because they get cabin fever. And you have more discipline issues. You have like more little, fourth grade girls fighting with other fourth grade girls because they don't like crap like that. And it's going to be kind of hellish until we take our break for spring. And then I'll be able to work on more patterns. But it was great. I got to bang out lots of patterns this week. I'm down to tomorrow. I'm going to empty another bag, and I think I will be down to 6 bags, which is remarkable because I started with 12. So, someday I'd really like to get my extra bathroom back because it's kind of convenient when you're in the living room and you just want to walk 2 feet to use the bathroom or even to use the sink, rather than walking all the way through the apartment to the other bedroom. But, talk about first world concerns is that I have to walk to my second bathroom. So I'm not going to complain too much, but we are getting there. And I've already seen some very interesting things that will be in the pile for my interesting finds next week. I'm just going to go over this one more time. I don't want to bore you guys, but Maria did, I think, miss this. So Maria, let me show you what I found. We won't go through the whole thing, but I'll show you some of it. So I found in the patterns this bag that Mr. Mouse has eaten. There's Mr. Mouse's little chew prints. He's been dead for a while. And then inside the bag was a bag. And inside that bag, and this was the candy bag, right? The dime bag, right? Not the drug dime bag, but the actual dime bag for candy, right? I found 3 of these. So 3 just like button. And a receipt from 1964. A pattern that was altered with the Philadelphia Inquirer. You can see the Philadelphia Inquirer there. The alterations. And she sewed across the pattern, which is such a strange thing. Sorry for all of you who have already seen this, but I just thought Maria would find that interesting. And then here's the pattern. And I'm thinking this is Marion Martin. I have to look it up. I noticed that like the Ann Adams patterns have lower numbers, but Marion Martin's, a lot of her patterns are up in the like the 900s and 700s and 800s. And the jacket, which we can see here, the jacket is uncut and factory folded and is mouse free. The mouse did not get to this. So, all right. So until next week, when I will be back at 2, and I will be showing you all the interesting things I found in the next bag that I'm going to go through. Until then, I hope you're well. I hope you stay well. Please like, subscribe, comment. I love comments. I can already see some really interesting comments here. And until then, have a great week. I hope some of you also have off tomorrow for President's Day because it would just be really nice, right, to have a day off. And until then, stay well, and I will see you next Sunday at 2 p.m. Bye.